My name is Chlo, and this is the Feed or Flow podcast, where you'll find authentic conversations on how to get your period back and restore your metabolism from years of disordered eating, low-calorie diets, and excessive exercise regimes. No trendy diets of celery juice and broccoli sprouts will be found here. Rather, my mission is to teach you balance and how the foods you've most likely cut out of your diet are the very ones that are essential for health. It's time we stop fearing food and embrace all that it can do for us. Food freedom, vivacious health, and a monthly menstrual cycle is possible, and I'm going to show you how to achieve this type of wellness without obsession. I think a lot of us are very familiar with this term, the female athlete triad, where you have like osteoporosis, amenorrhea. Red S is a term that's come out relatively recently. I feel like that's sort of the newer term to really describe sort of what's happening here. Do you mind really diving into the difference here between like the female athlete triad and Red S?
Yes, I love this question. The female athlete triad is, I'm actually not going to talk about it too much. And the reason why is because I do feel as though it is potentially, there's more research behind it. And so lots of people who are scholars in this area will say, oh, well, this is what we've proven. This is the proven information that we know about this condition. But it is also very, very tightly focused on a population of people that this situation, it's not just them that this pertains to. It's a very tightly focused group of people. So it's a woman. It is a lean woman. It is a woman who has a very low body mass index. That's all great, but that is not who really could benefit from the information that we understand about what happens when someone is taking in less energy relative to the amount of energy they're putting out. So relative energy deficiency in sport is a term that allows us to now talk about all genders, which is incredibly important because this type of systemic destruction does not just happen to women as a result of not having enough energy.
You know, I think as women, we see the period being something that's talked about a lot. And so that tends to be like a big sign that something's off. But I love how you're really mentioning this, that men go through energy debt and being overtrained, and they have negative consequences as well to this.
Yep, men can get, and again, I'm, all genders, because we have to hold space for everybody who is in the athletic world right now. We know we have
just humans.
Yes, humans in general.
Humans in general.
So,
yes,
that's right. So all humans, irrespective of what hormones they have floating around, will experience endocrine dysfunction as a result of low energy. And so we know that all genders will get things like osteoporosis. All genders will experience endocrine breakdown. The fact that a woman loses her period, menstruating people lose their period, is, again, it's that canary in the coal mine. It's that first symptom that something is definitively wrong. And it is, in some respects, kind of a benefit to us because it is a very early symptom. Typically, when people of other genders who do not menstruate get to the point where they realize something is wrong, it is way farther down the road. And unfortunately, they are very, very, very messed up. I have to say it. And I hate to generalize, but if we look at the research, what we see is that men who are diagnosed with Red S are typically way more depressed and have a much worse mental health profile because of the confusion that they have about what's going on and the lack of the lack of discussion there is around this being able to happen to men, and the lack of communication there is to men about transparency in talking about their mental health, and lack of stigma. So they tend to be way worse off than we are when they finally get diagnosed. They're way more down the rabbit hole.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. The other thing that happens, or the other thing that Red S does really well, is Red S does not just focus on bone density and amenorrhea and low body weight. It doesn't just focus on those things. It allows us to have a conversation about, again, those systemic effects of endocrine dysfunction. And as you've heard me say before, the endocrine system really does control a lot of different things in the body, starting with metabolism, starting with all the different aspects of, even things like, mental health and digestion, and just it's endless, all the different things the endocrine system is controlling. And so sometimes so what we can do then is we can sort of create a list of symptoms that are not just relegated to those very few things that we know about the female athlete triad, but now we can create this real big laundry list of things. So when someone comes into a physician's office and they say, I'm constipated, I have night sweats, and I'm tired and depressed, what we would hope, which I'm sorry to say doesn't really happen very often, is that just based on that alone, if a doctor takes that information and juxtaposes it with the training load, they can hopefully make an intelligent decision or have an intelligent conversation with their patient about what possible causes and effects and therefore treatment may be. Because now we can talk about more things. We can pull more things into that net of possible symptoms, because now we're not just talking about 3 things, we're talking about a lot of things. So hopefully that makes sense.
No, that definitely does. And I think it's something that's really important to educate ourselves on, because like you're kind of insinuating, not every doctor is going to be very aware of this. And so I think it's really good to always educate ourselves a lot so that we can bring up these type of conversations with our medical practitioners, our gynecologist or a doctor, so that they can really help us sort of move through this and find balance.
That's right. I think a lot of times we get frustrated in the community. We get frustrated with physicians and we say, God, I lost my period. Why are they trying to put me on the pill? Or why are they telling me they're just trying to shut me up? They're not listening to me. We have to give them a little bit of grace. And yes, they are responsible for learning more about us. That's for sure. But we have to remember too, that this condition that we've put ourselves in is not natural. It is not one that we would ever have expected to be as large a concern as it is. If you asked humans, hundreds, thousands of years ago, could you ever envision a time where we had to struggle to get people to feed themselves properly? Like people would look at you like you were crazy, because it would just be not imaginable that there would be such a huge population of people who would be concerned with aesthetics and sport. And again, this is different sort of for eating disorder community. And I can't speak to that, as you and I've talked about before. But when we're talking about the sport community, the community of athletes and other people who are interested in either performance or aesthetics, being such a huge group of people for whom this is a medical concern, like that is unimaginable, so that part is really, we have to understand that they're not trained for that, because it was almost like we can't imagine that ever having been a concern. But here we are, right? Because culture has put pressures on us, and we've put a lot of ourselves into these activities and in effect, bad behaviors because, of various pressures, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, so it's difficult, but communication is key when we talk to physicians.
I want to hone in on that one word that you said, a medical concern, because I think it's really easy to brush it off. I know I brushed it off, like this is no big deal. It's not that bad. But it is a medical concern. There are serious risk and side effects. And I really would just say for anyone listening, like go type in relative energy deficiency in sport, do your research, really understand what can go wrong when you start pushing yourself too far and when you start underfueling your body. So I also want to dive into this concept of needing exercise for mental sanity, because I feel like this is something that drives a lot of us to continue this, exercise sort of addiction, for lack of a better term. That's just like, I need to exercise. This is the only way where I feel calm, where I can feel at peace. It really helps me clear my mind. So I know that a lot of people, it's really hard for them to let go of exercise because they attribute their intense exercise regime with mental sanity. So I would love it if you could speak on this a little bit here.
Thanks for listening to this short clip from the Feeder Flow podcast. To listen to the rest of the show, head on over to your favorite podcast app like iTunes or Spotify. If your period has gone MIA, you're going to want to get her back. She's important for your health and misses you dearly. I've created a juicy online course designed to teach you everything I wish I knew about getting my period back, restoring my metabolism, and cultivating a healthy, nourishing relationship with food. The Get Your Flow On course is designed to empower and inspire you to achieve full recovery. Head on over to www.flowwithchlo.com to sign up.